Webster of the FBI now headed for the CIA. A major Israeli indictment in a big American spy case.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. One of the major tasks for President Reagan as he repairs his administration following the Tower Commission report on the Iran-Contra affair has been to find a new director of the CIA. Well, tonight the White House announced that FBI Director William Webster has accepted the president's nomination. Webster, who has received high marks for his stewardship of the FBI for the last 9 years, is a former federal judge from Missouri. And the announcement followed a busy day for the president as he tried to repair his own image. Here is NBC's Chris Wallace.
The president announced Webster's appointment tonight, calling him a man of honor and integrity, a man committed to the rule of law. It was clearly an effort to bolster the CIA's image in the wake of the Iran arms scandal. The Webster appointment came after several top candidates said they were not interested, one of them turning down an offer.
Oh, a variety of reasons. I just want to get back to private life for a while.
The FBI appointment was part of an effort today to counter the image of a disengaged president. Welcome back to the briefing room for the first time in 3 months, Mr. Reagan was feisty.
I haven't been away.
The president came to announce the U.S. will respond tomorrow to the Soviet offer to eliminate medium-range missiles in Europe. Aides admitted it was largely a pretext to show him looking presidential. But when reporters started asking about the Iran arms scandal, Mr. Reagan ducked out.
I'm prepared to talk on background.
All day, the White House was hard at work, showing a president hard at work. They released a picture showing Mr. Reagan being briefed on Mozambique and Angola. Another picture showed a meeting with the NSC staff to respond directly to criticism by the Tower Board. The president called for a full airing of all issues, something that didn't happen on Iran, adding legal issues must be addressed head-on and the rule of law respected. Mr. Reagan was also concentrating on a speech to the nation tomorrow that advisors consider one of the most important of his presidency. Aides say Mr. Reagan will go further than he has before in admitting mistakes in the Iran initiative. But leading Democrats say public relations is not enough, that the president must change his policies, not just cosmetics.
Well, I think the problem is a preoccupation with image, but what is needed is substance, not image.
And there were signs today it won't be easy to erase the damage from the arms scandal. There's been a wave of stories the last few days describing Nancy Reagan as the power behind the throne. One story called her Lady Macbeth. Another said the president is being made to appear wimpish by the political interference of his wife. Politicians in both parties say a strong first lady implies a weak president.
I think she reinforces the sense that the president's enfeebled and maybe not in control of everything. She's everywhere, she's hovering, she's too concerned.
People close to the Reagans sharply disagree.
He accepts input from his friends, among whom is his wife, his colleagues, but nobody makes a decision other than Ronald Reagan.
The speedy appointment of William Webster to head the CIA is part of a new effort here to make Mr. Reagan look decisive. The public appearances, the attention to detail, the changes in personnel, it's nothing less than the president campaigning to look presidential. Chris Wallace, NBC News, at the White House.
On the arms control matter, the president said he welcomed the offer by Soviet leader Gorbachev to discuss the intermediate nuclear missile question independently of SDI, Star Wars. But he added that any agreement must also be independently verifiable. And John Poindexter, who left his job as director of the National Security Council as a result of the Iran-Contra affair, will accept a reduction in rank rather than retire from the Navy. The Pentagon spokesman said Poindexter could not retain his vice admiral status without a presidential appointment and Senate confirmation. Since that was highly unlikely, he decided to drop down in rank. And there's new fallout today from the spy charges against Jonathan Pollard, fallout that would put added strain on U.S. relations with Israel, on top of the strain caused by disclosures about Israel's role in the sale of arms to Iran. An indictment was brought today against a high-ranking officer in Israel's Air Force. NBC's Art Kent reports tonight he is accused of recruiting Pollard to sell Israel some of this country's most sensitive secrets.
Intelligence experts say Jonathan Pollard's spying for Israel did more damage to U.S. intelligence gathering than the KGB has ever done. Pollard, a U.S. Navy intelligence analyst, pleaded guilty last summer and will be sentenced tomorrow. Today's 3-count indictment charges Israeli Air Force Colonel Aviam Sela with recruiting and controlling Pollard from the summer of 1984 until November 1985, when he was arrested trying to gain asylum in Israel's Washington embassy. Pollard had provided specialized target data, which Israel used to bomb PLO headquarters in Tunis in October of 1985, as well as thousands of other intelligence items. Israel apologized to the U.S., saying the spying was not an Israeli government operation, it was a renegade operation. According to some observers, the damage to U.S.-Israeli relations was severe, and the Israeli government is concerned about the issue of Israeli spying in this country.
We hope that there will be ways to remove this source of problem in the relationship between our two countries in the near future.
Making matters worse, Israel rewarded Sella with a larger command. It's unlikely Sella will ever be tried here, since espionage is excluded from the extradition treaty between Israel and the U.S. Justice Department officials said today's indictment was a deliberate expression of U.S. displeasure with Israel. Art Kent, NBC News, Washington.
Also coming up here tonight on NBC Nightly News, Lisa Myers with part 2 of her investigative series on the coal barons. Tonight, a Kentucky man who has made a fortune and a lot of critics. And George Lewis tonight on the death of this man of so many voices, so many characters. Danny Kaye.
Taster's Choice gets its superior richness, aroma, and flavor from a blend of the very same coffee beans found in gourmet stores. Regular or naturally decaffeinated, the choice for taste is Taster's Choice.
By this time tomorrow morning, I've got to be on location 500 miles from here. No limo for me. I like driving too much. This Mazda 626 Coupe has a fuel-injected overhead cam power plant that just loves to run. There's also a very sophisticated suspension system that really takes the kinks out of corners. You could easily pay $6 grand more for one of those European road cars and not get a better car. But if it'd make you feel any better, you can always send the money to me. My address is 337...
My job is selling computers, and it's getting more competitive every day. That's why I take good care of myself. If a headache slows me down, the pain reliever I rely on is Tylenol. I was first given Tylenol in the hospital after a football injury. It worked then, and it still does. And you know, Tylenol is the pain reliever hospitals use most. Well, if hospitals trust Tylenol, I can believe in it too.
Trust Tylenol, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
Tums doesn't have it. Rolaids doesn't have it. Maalox Plus does. We have what you need for complete relief of excess acid, heartburn, and gas. Maalox for acid and heartburn, plus simethicone for gas. Get complete relief. Try Maalox Plus.
The U.S. Supreme Court today issued what may become a landmark ruling protecting the jobs of people with contagious diseases, possibly including people with AIDS. As NBC News law correspondent Carl Stern reports tonight, the court ruled that fear of a disease is no longer a legal reason to fire someone.
The court ruled that this northern Florida school system violated laws that protect the handicapped when it fired third-grade teacher Jean Arline, who had had tuberculosis.
They panicked, and I had to suffer. My family suffered, and I'm still suffering.
I felt like that it was not an acceptable risk for the board to leave her in a third-grade classroom or any other classroom in Nassau County.
But today's ruling went far beyond the schoolroom or whether persons with inactive tuberculosis are entitled to job protection. The court said all contagious diseases are handicaps for which a person cannot be arbitrarily fired, which could include victims of AIDS.
For millions of workers who face dismissal because they carry AIDS or another contagious disease, the importance of today's decision is that employers must now prove that a worker poses a danger or can no longer do the job. The court said firings cannot be based on fear alone.
Justice William Brennan wrote the 7-2 decision. While noting that the court was not ruling on an AIDS case, he said individuals should not be denied jobs because of the prejudice or ignorance of others. The decision was an apparent defeat for the Justice Department, which concluded last summer that the fear of AIDS, even irrational fear, could permit the firing of workers likely to carry the disease. It was the biggest victory gay rights advocates have won in the Supreme Court.
The reasoning of the ruling is so broad and it's so clear that this is going to have a broad impact on employers across the country.
The court made very clear that firing cannot be based on prejudice or stereotype or hysteria.
Future cases will determine when it is reasonable to fire workers with AIDS and other communicable diseases. But the court said that should be based on medical judgments, not unfounded fear. Carl Stern, NBC News at the Supreme Court.